It's a distraction. And you've been there. You've had people say things about you that are not true. You've had people question your motives, and the way that they question your motives, it was the actual opposite of what the case was. You had a vision for your marriage, and people questioned your loyalty to your spouse. You had a vision for your children, and people questioned your loyalty to your kids or your grandkids. It's so easy to get distracted by criticism, but look at what Nehemiah, look at what he says. Verse 8 and verse 9, he doesn't chase the rumors. He goes straight to God in prayer. He turns his attention to the one who enlisted him into the vision. Verse 8 says, then I sent to him saying, no such things as you say have been done, for you are inventing them out of your own mind. Verse 9, for they all wanted to frighten us, thinking their hand will drop from the work and it will not be done. But now, O God, strengthen my hands. And so Nehemiah wasn't distracted by the criticism. We notice this. There are other places in the book of Nehemiah that nothing brings out critics like a vision. When you have a passion to see something that is changed to something that could and should be, and you're pumped up about it, there are people in the world who just don't know what to do with passionate people. They look at them, they must be crazy, they must be weird, they're so excited, there must be something wrong with them, or they're all in it for themselves. And so they didn't know what to do with Nehemiah's passion. When you have a vision, it's easy to criticize, to say, well, how are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? How are you going to get the money? Who's going to help you here? It's really easy to criticize a vision, and it's easy when you get criticized with your vision to let it destroy you. But Nehemiah didn't do any of those things. Nehemiah went to God in prayer and basically paraphrased, he said, you know what, God? You hear what they're saying. You got me into this thing. I'm going to let you take care of them, and I'm asking that you strengthen my hand for the work that you've called me to do. In other words, I'm going to stay focused. I'm not going to be distracted by the criticism. I'm not going to let the questioning of my motives derail me. I'm not going to get angry. And if you've ever been criticized like that, you probably got angry. I know that, when I've had my motives questioned, and probably when you've had your motives questioned, the first feeling that you get is a feeling of anger. Amen? Don't you? You're all holy people, holier than me. Yeah. No, I just calmly say, oh, you silly. No, you probably don't do that. You get mad, right? And anger is a form of focus. So you'd say, well, great, form of focus. That means that I'm focused. That's great. But the reason that anger is a distraction, even though it's a form of focus, is because anger focuses you on the wrong things. What anger does is it focuses you on your critics. It focuses you on what the critics are saying instead of focusing you on the vision and the one who authored the vision. And so what Nehemiah does is very instructive. Instead of channeling his anger and pouring it on his critics or on what they're saying, instead of leaping to the front and defending himself and developing talking points and trying to go and snuff out the rumors and all of those things, instead of doing any of those things, what Nehemiah does is he goes to the Lord and he says, Lord, you take care of it. You take care of it. Strengthen my hand for the vision. I cannot get distracted. And so he stays the course. He channeled his anger through prayer, and we should do the same thing. Because really, the best way to silence your critics is to finish the vision. The best way to silence your critics is success. I remember when I first became senior pastor of this church, and it's such a tumultuous time. Anytime there's a transition like this, and I remember some folks would come up to me and they would tell me the latest rumors going around. And I'm sure it wasn't widespread, sure just a few people. But I remember hearing some of the things that they were, people were thinking my motives were, or what I was going to do and how I thought. And I remember thinking, where in the world are they coming up with this stuff? And I remember worrying myself sick. How am I going to defend myself? What am I going to say? What talking points? Do we need to call a business meeting, a town hall meeting? And I remember thinking to myself, you know what? And Nehemiah proves this to be true. You just let time tell the truth. You let time tell the truth. If your critics are questioning your motives and they're saying of you what is not true, time will tell the truth. And if you think God is in it and you really believe and you're pushing forward because you know the Lord's blessing it, then you let the success of the vision silence your critics. Because if they're questioning your motives, saying you're trying to do one thing and it never turns out to do that thing, then your critics will be silenced. I want you to look a little bit later in the text in chapter 6, and you see this dynamic at work. It's in verses 15 and 16. Basically, the wall is finished in verse 15, and then in verse 16, It says, when our enemies heard that we had completed the wall, all the nations around us were afraid and fell greatly in their own esteem. And what was the reason? For they perceived that this work had been accomplished with the help of our God. That's so good. They fell in their own confidence. They fell in their own esteem. That means that they lost their confidence, that they were basically humiliated. And the reason they were humiliated is because they began to realize, Nehemiah, I was wrong about you. I was wrong about your vision. The Lord is in this thing, and I was on the wrong side of history. And that's the way you silence your critics. But you've got to trust the Lord. You've got to come to a place where you say, Lord, you're my defender. I'm not accountable to my critics, so I'm not going to be distracted by my criticisms. I'm going to focus on the vision because you're the one who gave this to me, and if you're in it, you're going to see it through to success. So don't be distracted by criticism. If God is the source of your vision, you cannot lose.